This one?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, it turned red, just like it's supposed to. Okay, call to order and roll call. I'm calling this meeting to order. Chairman Potter?
Chair Potter,
Here?
Member Tatum,
Present.
Member Lloyd Likos, excused, Member Cunningham.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Okay, announcement regarding compliance with open meeting law. Do I read that? It just says that we're in, where is it?
We're in compliance, Chair.
We're in compliance, okay. Then we'll go to item 3, comment during this public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. I look out in the audience, and we're barely filling our staff. So, given that we have no one stepping forward, we will close that public comment and move on to item 4 for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of November 18, 2024. Do I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do we get a vote? Do we vote on that? Okay. Present. Potter, vote yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, guess what? That passed. We're moving. Okay. Oh, golly, we worked right up to... All right. Item number 5, report by Michael Cunningham, Deputy Community Development Director and Building Official, regarding the Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2025. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, Michael Cunningham, building official for the City of Las Vegas. So today, for this first item, we're going to be going over our current budget. And if you notice, unfortunately, when we met last time, we were kind of on a decline in terms of permits and revenue. That typically happens in an election year and going into the end of the year, so we thought we were going to kind of bounce back. But if you look at our budget, we have not bounced back. We've kind of continued to trend down. So if you look at our numbers at the very bottom, it has the net income loss for fiscal year 25. If you can see, we unfortunately have been in the red every month since August. January, we were in the positive because we did a transfer from our deferred revenues, but if you take that transfer out, that month would have been in the red as well. So unfortunately, we are still trending down. It's something that we are watching closely. We've had a few retirements come up. We have a few more that are coming up as well. It's something we're looking at before we fill any positions right now, just to keep an eye on our revenues and our permit volume to see if filling a position is the right thing to do right now. One thing that does lead us to is just trying to look at our revenues. In years where we have high volume, because we are cost-based and we're supposed to just be charging for our services, when volumes goes down, we don't get the luxury of padding with all the large volume. So looking at our fees is something that we are going to be looking at this year, just to see if a fee increase will help us get back to cost neutral. The last increase we did was back before COVID. I think it was 2019 was the last increase we did. So that's something we're going to do, and obviously we're monitoring our volume. When we get to item 8, I'll go over some of the large projects, and you can see we do have stuff in the works. It's just not quite the level that it has been in previous years. There's nothing specific I really wanted to point out with the budget. Other than right now, we are projected to finish at $14,298,930 in revenue. As you can see, that's down quite a bit from our budget of $16,498,000, so just over $2 million short on revenues. Because of this, we are trying to be very mindful with our expenses. Obviously, salaries are certain things we can't control, but right now we're projected at $15,878,585. which is still down about $2 million from our budget, which is $17,871,000, but that would put us in the red at the end of the year by a little over almost $2 million. So it's definitely something we are keeping an eye on. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Tatum.
Yes, Member Tatum, for the record, thank you for the update Mr. Cunningham. I did have a couple of questions. One is, you made mention to potential of looking at a fee increase based off of what you've been seeing. Can you walk me through a little bit of like, what are the metrics that you're comparing and what's the duration before you would do something like increase fees?
So if we did do a fee increase, so one, we would just be looking at our cost on a permit volume basis. Again, since we're cost-based, we would just look and see if what we are charging for our permits is accurately reflecting what we're expending. Obviously, over the years, salaries have went up, other costs between the city and what we have to pay for services from the city has went up. So we would look at all those just to see. The process is kind of a lengthy one, so we would end up hiring a consultant. We've had a consultant that has done our last ones. We'd probably most likely go with that company again. They would come in and they would look at our fees as well as the fire fees that we collect on the enterprise fund side. And then he would make a recommendation based on what our current salaries are, what our current expenses are. And then he would make a recommendation on how much we should increase. We would then sit down, meet with stakeholders, meet with industry, obviously, meet with the enterprise fund board and give what our recommendation would be to try to get some feedback and then adjust accordingly. Just as an FYI, every time we've done a fee study, we've never went to full cost recovery. So when I first started at the city in 2014, we did one. I think we increased around 16% at that point. The one we did in 2019, he was recommending about a 30% increase, and I think we went with I believe it was a 12.5% increase. So we always try to be mindful of industry and impacts. And then obviously with that, we always would give a grace period for everyone to adjust budgets and stuff. We don't want to hit anyone with increased fees in the middle of a project they've already been planning. So we'd work with industry to figure out what a good effective date is for the new fees.
Okay, and just a follow-up question, does that mean that you're looking at the current fiscal year's, I guess, workload and everything, or are you looking years back as well? Because I guess the concern that I would have is just about any type of temporary economic factors that may be stunting development, but may not be necessarily indicative of long-term anticipated growth.
Again, for the record, Michael Cunningham. Yeah, so if you notice on the bottom of the budget, so something we always look back and forward just to kind of see, because it is a very cyclical industry in general, and there are things currently going on that may be hindering development still a little bit. So it's something we look at. So as you can see on our budget, we always go back, we have FY 24, 23, 22, 21. We have those same numbers for our actual permit numbers. So we go back and we try to look and see, okay, where were we at this time last year? Are we below where were we at 5 years ago? And just try to find kind of a trend line. Right now, just unfortunately, it's still trending down. And so we're trying to write out the rest of this year, the rest of this fiscal year. March we don't have March numbers yet. They just closed last week, so we don't have the numbers. But permit volume-wise, we have those. It was higher than February. So March, I think we're still going to end up in the red, but we should be less than we were in February. I'm hoping only 100,000 in the red compared to the 450,000. But yes, we always look back and forward.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Potter, I have just a statement, maybe kind of a question, but when that analysis is done, are there any comparisons, and are there any comparisons now to where we are in our fee basis versus the other governmental entities that do the same thing as us?
For the record, Michael Cunningham, yeah. Typically, whenever we adjust our fees, we always will look at the local valley to see what their fees are. I know Henderson is going through their fee study now, and I think they're proposing to adopt their new fee shortly. I don't know the last time County or North Las Vegas have, but yes, we usually will always compare. And that's one of the decision factors when, if the consultant comes back and says, hey, to be truly cost neutral, you should increase 30%, but if we look and we see, okay, well, that's going to put us way out of line with the rest of the industry, then that's when we'd kind of pull back that number with working with the stakeholders in the industry to say, okay, well, we're only going to do 15%. That should get us where we need to be to where at least we're just cost neutral.
Yeah, and one more question, somewhat relative to that, and I know that I personally have always had concerns about the amount of, I don't know what quite the proper phrase is, but basically what we pay in overhead and direct cost to the general fund out of our billings. What percent is that? And do we have any idea how we compare with that? Because that's a substantial fee and cost compared with the other governmental jurisdictions.
For the record, Michael Cunningham. So on our budget on line item, it's the general government cost allocation. So it's line item 599000. So for this current fiscal year, we pay a little over $3 million for our services from the general fund. I would have to look, I was gonna try to do a calculation real quick to see what percentage it is. And then I will have to look to see if there's an industry best practice or standard on what that percentage should be and how we compare to other jurisdictions.
Yes, because I think that's a big percentage, so it could skew what we think visually much more than what's really taking place in terms of our actual costs.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, so between our salary, so those are, expenses we don't have a whole lot of control over. In that general government cost allocation, we're just at almost 14 million just in those two line items alone. So it is definitely a number that does control a lot of our expenses, and it's something I will look at both from a percentage-wise and just a general best practice or general standard. I don't know if there's a best practice for it.
Okay, I think we're good with that, Michael, with that item, number 5.
Yep, unless there's any other questions.
If so, I'm going to just take a break and introduce Ms. Tina Frias. Welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring you up to speed. We're on item number 6. Okay, item number 6, report by Michael Cunningham, Deputy Community Development Director and Building Official regarding the tentative enterprise fund budget for fiscal year 2026.
All right, thank you. Again, for the record, Michael Cunningham. So for this item, there is a slight change to the backup that you were given as well. And so for the record, I will be passing out an updated budget projection, and then I'll read the numbers if you want to pass these down. There's several rows that are highlighted. So our finance department did their updated projections. And these are all going to be all of those non-discretionary items. So it's mainly expenses and the labor line items, and then our services from the city that we were just talking about, those general government cost allocation. So if we start at the top first, under expenses, you'll see 6 rows that are highlighted. Those all change from the backup that you're originally given. The total increase of those line items is $313,298 spread across those line items. And then if you go down to the discretionary, there's another 5 items. Those increased about $179,184. So the total increase for our expenses was $492,482. And those are projections based on salary increases and, again, services from the city. So if you look at the budget as a whole, we are projecting a little bit of a decline from this year, but a little bit of an increase from our proposed projections. So we're at $16,565,607 for our total revenues. And we're projecting an expense of $19,512,941. So as you can see, that's a very large discrepancy. So expenses is something that we will be continuing to look at until this kind of starts to balance out again. And like I said, that mainly is going to be impacted by positions that come up as vacancies and whether or not we will fill them. And then a fee increase to see if we can get our budget back balanced, or hopefully we can just get a permit volume increase, which will also help us get there. With that, I did just want to hint on our reserve balance because the numbers, unfortunately, this meeting don't look too well. But our reserve balance, we're still sitting good on reserves. So we do have year-to-date, we're at $6,680,011 in our reserve balance. So we still have a healthy reserve balance. So we can adjust this over the next year or two, but it's definitely something that we got to keep an eye on, and try to get it to balance back out. And same thing, government cost allocation did go up, so for this next upcoming year, it's at 3.2 million for the general government cost allocation fees. And again, I will look at what that percentage is and the best standard.
Do we have any other questions here from the board?
Yeah, Member Tatum, for the record, just to clarify, the sheet that you just handed out to us, is that supposed to read that it's the draft for the FY '26 budget?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And let me look at this real quick. The items that are in gray, I think it's the same count of items that were in gray in the original version that was in the packet. Those represent what when you're looking at the cost code line item 59,1100 through 59,9,000? Are those all like pro rata costs that are distributed across all agencies? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, for the record, Michael Cunningham. Yeah, so the ones that are in a darker gray, those are usually fees that we pay to the general fund essentially for services. So it's, maintenance of our vehicles, radios and pagers, our computers, capital recovery expense for our vehicles, our insurance for our cars, depreciation, the facility charges, so the rent that we pay, and then the general government cost allocation. So those are essentially discretionary funds, but they go to the general fund for specific services.
Okay, and Member Tatum, for the record again, the line item that is in the cost code 37-1000 operating transfers in the $2 million, what does that represent again? Under the revenue?
That would be a transfer in from our deferred revenue account, or not our deferred, from our reserve balance to account for the shortfall. If we actually ended the year 2 million short, we would need to take $2 million out of our reserve balance to be whole.
Okay, and again, I didn't get a chance to look at this one in particular, but Member Tatum, for the record, what is your anticipated, I guess, expenses associated with third-party inspection for the future?
So third-party inspection specifically, we only have, so we have a contract with 2 consultants. We're currently only using one of them. If we continue to have revenue issues, we will most likely pull back from that consultant on the inspection side. The plan review side, we do have 3 consultants still on board, and we're still using all 3 of them. We're trying to use them sparingly. We're trying to be mindful of, obviously, time frames on plan review and everything, and our budget. We budget $1.6 million for professional services, which covers all of our consultants, and that's line item 510900. We don't anticipate using that full amount. We haven't used that full amount the last few years. For fiscal year 25 right now, we're projected at 1.3 million. Next year, I anticipate if we continue to have revenue issues, it'll be even lower than that. But it is a service that we will still need to make sure that we can meet the customer's demands.
Thank you.
Chair Potter, back on my little issue of general government cost allocations, I see here you have the 3228615 number, but then you indicated that all these dark gray are also in one form or another basically go to the general fund, and so that number is considerably larger than the 3228. I mean, I'm looking at what's PC applications and infrastructure for 607,500?
For the record, Michael Cunningham, that is going to be for all of our computer softwares and the computers in general. So we have our Infor system that we pay out of that, View Specs, which is our mobile inspector app, we pay out of that. All of our computers, internet, all the stuff needed to kind of support the computer realm and any programs that we need.
Chairman Potter, and that wouldn't come under the 3228 category? Yeah. that
Sorry, for the
number.
record, Michael Cunningham. No, I'll have to get back with you on this. So yeah, it doesn't come under that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain the difference between the two, but I think I'm going to need a little bit of help from finance on that one. And with Gail not being here, I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
But yeah, it doesn't come out. It is a separate line item. And so I'll just have to get a better understanding of the general government cost allocation.
Just because that comes up under computer and IT whatnot, it seems to me when I was reading one of these budgets that there was a $2 million for computers, IT, and I can't put my hand on it right now, but I thought I saw that in one of the,
Yeah, for the record, Michael, so I think it was either last year or the year before, we transferred, so we had a really, really good year. I want to say it was last year or the year before, I can't remember which one now. We transferred $2 million out of our budget into, into our IT internal service fund, and that was for future system upgrades, for N4, program updates, all that kind of stuff. And that was, I think we transferred 1.9 million. Like I said, I'm going to say it was either last year or the year before. We had a really good year. This year, unfortunately, does not look like it's going to be that same.
okay. Any other comments on that?
Yes, Member Frias, for the record, if we could get some type of breakdown that explains that general government cost allocation, that would be very helpful.
For the record, Mike, yep, I will get a breakdown of what all that line item covers and make sure I have it for the next meeting.
Okay, given that, we'll close out item 6 and go to item 7, report by Michael Cunningham, Deputy Community Development Director and Building, regarding the 2024 code adoption schedule and process.
All right, a couple more items for you guys. For the record, Michael Cunningham, building official for the City of Las Vegas. So code adoption, we're finally really starting to wrap it up. I feel like I've said that at the last few meetings, but we're finally really close. So we have our full amendment packages. The steering committee's been done with them. Snowbo's been done with them. We finished all the public comments, all the public neighborhood meetings that we did. We have a schedule now. So we're going to actually open it up for business impact statement next week. It will go for 30 months, and then we will have our scheduled dates for recommending committee, city council first reading and a second reading, and then an adoption in July, and then an effective date in January. So business impact statement next week. So far, there's only been 2 items that have come up as a question from industry. One of them has to do with waterproofing and some horizontal rebar on freestanding retaining walls. And then I just got a question today about an energy code amendment that we have and just a clarification on ResNet versus another company. So it seems like for the most part, the industry is acceptable to the amendments. And so we will be moving forward with that.
Board, any comments on that report?
Member Tatum, for the record, I just want to commend Member Cunningham with the ongoing and continued transparency around the process. As we've said multiple times in this venue and in other venues, that it's very important that the community have an opportunity to be aware of what's going on, and it definitely introduces a new dynamic for developers that are out of state that may not be as familiar with some of the nuances between all the different jurisdictions. So I did want to thank you for that continued transparency. Could you confirm again the exact dates that you think would be the effective and the adoption rate?
Yep,
Adoption date.
the adoption date would be July, trying to make sure I get the date right. I think it's July 14th, my calendar, because it's next fiscal year. And then the effective date would be 6 months after that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Chair Potter, how are we doing as a City of Las Vegas code adoption? Are we on the same page as the other governmental jurisdictions, or how many different amendments are going to be out there from the different governments?
For the record, Michael Cunningham. So for City of Las Vegas, the only code that we're amending outside of Snowball's amendment process is the plumbing code. We still do have a few amendments in the plumbing code specific to grease interceptors and things like that our environmental folks do a little bit differently. And then fire code, which Dave can talk about in his item fire, we have some amendments that are local to City of Las Vegas only. Outside of that, I would consider it a majority of them are going to be out of the consensus document that Snowball produced through their steering committee process. A couple of the big ones, one of the ones I'm really excited about is Chapter 10 in the plumbing code. Grease interceptors have been an issue in the valley for a while as far as hydromechanicals and above ground units. We did all agree to go to base code in the plumbing code, so it will allow hydromechanicals without an AMMR, without any hurdles or engineering constraints that you have to justify. So there's a few big ones in there. I know we worked with the industry on the energy code to get slab edge insulation and the different things amended, and the state did approve that package. So I think all in all, I think it's a good package, and we should all be relatively close.
Chair Potter, thank you. Any other question before we move on?
Yes, Member Frias, for the record, I'd also like to commend Member Cunningham, not only for the transparency, but also just for the partnership and working with industry to make sure that, the concerns that we have are well understood. And I know that a lot went into that process, and we very much appreciate the working collaboratively and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Given that, we'll move on to item number 8, a report by Michael Cunningham, Deputy Community Development Director and Building Official, regarding projects with significant impact to Building and Safety Division resources and budget.
All right, one more time. For the record, Michael Cunningham, Building Official for the City of Las Vegas. So as you can tell from the budget, we don't have a lot of big projects that are going to be on this that we haven't already talked about. But I still did want to give updates. I know this has been appreciated on the last few meetings. And like I said, that we still do have a lot of work and a lot of projects in the works. It's not the volume that we've had in previous years, and so it's just showing up in our revenues. So to get started first, just the general overview that I always start out. So we have a lot of multifamily going on. These ones are just a few of them. So Sunrise and 28th is a 2-story apartment building. It's 121 units. It's actually a project that's in conjunction with the Southern Nevada Regional Housing Authority. Eli at Rancho is a big apartment builder. They got 324 units. We got the Gateway multifamily, which is another 230 units. And then a commercial one out in the northwest, the Mountain View, is looking at a new medical office building, which will be a 4-story building in their current complex that they have. Something I always hit on is the large projects, our valuation numbers, just to kind of get an idea. So large projects over $100,000 in valuation. Right now we have 78 projects in review, totaling $16,593,610. Just for comparison, as you can see from our revenue, last time we met, that number was 148 projects at $35 million in valuation. So you can see we're about half the projects in there. We still have a lot in there, just not as much as we had. And then our large projects, which we consider over $500,000 in valuation, we have 79 permits in review with the valuation of just under $1 billion at $967,952,984. And again, just for comparison, not to be the Debbie Downer, but just so everyone can understand the difference, last time we met, there's 135 permits that were in the works at that valuation with just over $1 billion. So as you can see, our numbers are kind of matching our revenue, just needed to be picked up a little bit. Next, Medical District. This one's a new one that we're working on. It's located at the southwest corner of Alta and Tonopah. It's a Class A apartment project, multi-story, approximately 200 units, and then it'll have the 500 square feet of ground floor retail. One of the things I wanted to kind of emphasize on this presentation, especially since right now we are looking for some projects to come in, is our overlap with our EUD department and our RDA, the redevelopment agency. They usually are the ones that help me out with a lot of these big projects. They see them before I see them, and so we get to find out. So this is one they're working with, trying to buy an affordable housing project. It's almost an acre that would be purchased by the RDA on Las Vegas Boulevard, and then they would be working with a developer to get that developed and turn it into some affordable housing down near the Arts District. Another program that they're working on that can help spur some projects coming in downtown is an electrical utility incentive program. So this is a program our RDA has put together where they will help projects that are in the RDA 1 or RDA 2, which is mainly downtown, get some incentives or some revenue or some funds to help underground utilities. As you know, downtown, a big cost of developing downtown would be undergrounding the overhead utilities. So this is a program they put together to kind of help offset those costs for developers and get them some assistance. We're hoping things like this and the property that they had purchased helps kind of spur the project and keep some projects coming in for us. District 2, I'm going to keep on here just until that thing gets fully developed. That is a very active site. If you drove by it, pun intended, the plane has landed. It is coming outside of that building in that area. They're finishing up the skin on most of the other shell buildings. The main tenant, Universal Studios, has their TCO they're looking for in May for stocking and training, and then they have their grand opening in August. And then pretty much all the other spaces are all at some phase of plan review or construction. We're still getting some that are coming in the system, some newer TIs. We have a lot of TIs that are about to be issued, and then we have some out there that are in construction. So it's a very active site, keeping us very busy and continuing to grow. And then that leads us on just to the development agreements that we always talk about. These are projects that hopefully will come to fruition and give us some good projects moving forward. Desert Pines, this one has some legs behind it again. So this one is going to council on June 4th. So this is the Desert Pines Golf Course. Once that's done, the development agreement's approved. I'm not sure of the timing after that, but that is obviously one of the major milestones, is getting that development agreement approved. The other ones that we've talked about in the past is the Upper Las Vegas Wash. That one is still just in negotiations, obviously taking a little bit longer than anticipated, but it is still a project that's moving forward. It's just taking a bit of time. BLM 505, we talked about last time. That development agreement was approved, and we are actually starting to see permits on that one. And if you remember, that one's out in the west end of town, kind of by the pulley alignment where the Sheep Mountain Parkway alignment is. It's 505 acres, max unit of 3,500 residential houses with some open space. And that one, we are starting to actually see the infrastructure plans now, and so we should be seeing some of the building permits here soon. That's it for the big projects. Something, just because the revenues and talking a lot about projects and stuff, something we always track is what projects we do see coming up. I saw an article in about a couple larger parcels in Summerlin that sold to a couple home builders. So those are going forward. I had a talk with Richmond. It sounds like they're moving forward again with purchasing land and starting to build houses and stuff. So it looks like everything's going to start to come back, just a little bit of a longer of a delay than we thought. So we're going to try to ride it out, not do anything too hasty, and see where we're at the end of the year.
Board, any comments?
Member Tatum, for the record, first and foremost, thank you again. I think it's just exceptional to be able to have that kind of clarity and presentation of seeing what projects are being contemplated. It certainly helps bring some context to the budgeting, things that we just talked about, but also it's just exciting to continue to see where folks continue to invest. I did have a question for you that was kind of interesting. That electrical utility incentive program, how is that, I guess, being advertised to developers?
For the record, Michael Cunningham. So I will have to check with our RDA. So our redevelopment agency and EUD is the one that does that. So I know I've been in multiple stakeholder meetings where they meet with the routine developers that come into downtown, and they always mention it to them. Obviously, me mentioning it here, and then I don't know if they have any other outreach that they're doing, but it's something I can definitely find out and let you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be good for that to be, I guess, more generally known, and maybe it is out there and just I didn't know about it, but certainly utility costs, particularly anything with NV Energy, is always a major wild card. So if there's any dollars to offset that, I think that'll be of interest to most aspiring developers. Another question I have, and I just don't know if you can answer this, two relatively higher profile projects in the Symphony Park area. I don't know if there's been any updates in regards to the Art Museum and or the Symphony Park, I believe it's called the Origin Project.
Yep, so both of those, so the Art Museum, we actually just had a meeting, I'm gonna say it was like 3 weeks ago, to talk about a fire access issue. So I know they're continuing to work on that design. So that one is still moving forward. I don't think we've had an official plan review submittal yet that I've seen, but I know their architects are working on that, so it should be coming in shortly. Origin, we are still working through a few of the last plan review comments. That one I know it's getting close to being issued. And so that one is still moving forward as well, as far as I know. And then there's over by the Blue Grove Center, there's a project we talked about last time. That one's still in the works. I haven't seen any progress on it, but there's another, either a parking garage or another medical building going on over there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board before we move on? Hearing none, we'll close out item number 8, and we'll get a report by David Cross, Fire Plans Review Section Manager, regarding updates on Las Vegas fire and rescue issues that can affect the administration and finances of the Building and Safety Enterprise Fund, such as updates on fire sprinkler inspections, plan reviews, and/or fees. Welcome, David.
David Cross for the record, thank you. So over the last 6 months, trending with what Mr. Cunningham was saying is we've seen an overall decrease in plan reviews and inspections, roughly 35% as well in the amount of plan reviews and inspections that have come across. With that, we are still holding on our plan review schedule. We're still holding pretty strong at about 79% being reviewed within the 14-day window that we've tried to maintain for industry standard. Since September, since our last meeting, we talked about the fire plan reviews on tract homes. We took those back from being outsourced. And since doing that, there has been roughly 233 reviews of those types of applications done, and we've done a good job. We have slipped slightly as far as being able to maintain the 14-day turnaround, just as we were getting up to speed in that. They were hitting at about 98% when they were third-partied, and we have gone down to about a 70% overall. Unfortunately, it's a little bit less than we wanted to, but we're getting up to speed and catching back up. So haven't heard too many impacts from developers with regard to that. As far as code amendments are concerned, we are in line to be on the same adoption schedule with Mr. Cunningham and the building department. We are roughly the same as the consensus amendments throughout the valley. We've added about 15 plus or minus amendments to the overall package that are more specific to the city of Las Vegas. A lot of it has to do with fire access, roadway widths that we've given for residential developments, and that we have to maintain in our local amendments versus the consensus amendments. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board, any questions for Mr. Cross?
Member Tatum, for the record, no questions for me. Thank you for the update.
Ms. Frias?
No questions either. Thank you for the update.
All right, thank you, David. All right, now we're moving right along into the closed. A discussion regarding topics for future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the committee and/or whether such proposed items shall be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. Do we have any items that we want to discuss?
So just for the record, since I typically do all the items. No, so the ones I plan on putting on there, I'll put obviously the budget for FY '26, where we're going to be at that point. I'll put how we ended the budget for FY '25, and then address any of the comments that came up as part of the discussion today. I'll do the big project update again. And then by then, we should be adopted. So I can close out with an adoption item if you'd like, just to confirm it has been closed out. And then unless there's anything else you guys want, those will be our 4 items, and then Fire will always give their update as well.
Very good. Chair Potter, I agree. Board?
Member Tatum, for the record, I agree.
Member Frias, for the record, I also agree.
Okay, item number 11, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time in any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. And I look out in the audience, and I question, anybody out there want to come up? We see no one, so based upon that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. That was quick and productive.